Do monsters even need to use pronouns? Okay, so assuming you clicked on this title or thumbnail to hear me discuss the details of this controversy and what I think of it all, we'll get to that. But first I need to break down a few other pressing topics. More specifically, this tweet. What do you think you're actually doing for the trans community by discussing this? Kitty diddler or not, she's a proud trans woman that I'm happy to share the air I breathe with. I would think you'd want to distance Ava as the furthest from your community in efforts to salvage what's left of its reputation after Jeffrey Marsh or Keffers. The irony being that these monsters don't speak for your community, so why are you actively bringing unnecessary attention to your doorstep with this bullshit? I guess by now you already know how I feel about this shit smear, but in case anyone's still in the dark, Ava, you can take one of those Feastable bars and shove it right up your ass. Nothing about these Discord leaks are innocent or misunderstood, and regardless of how the victim feels about this topic, or how Ava hides behind it like a fucking coward, I'm not willing to take the recollection of someone who was 13 at the time to heart, especially considering the backpedaling they've had to make after the chat leaks. If they were lying, that just shows that they're still under the influence of Ava in one way or another. And if they really did repress or misunderstand the situation that took place, that's even more reason not to believe the recounting of events with Ava specifically. Now, trans community aside, all of these messages, as far as I'm aware, took place before Ava's transition. Does that correlate with why we're only just now hearing about it? Well, I thought you'd never ask. Well, although it's possible, I think we can agree that terrible people exist in every community. Examples like Dr. Disrespect, Cody Ko, Miranda Sings, James Charles.
Hi, sisters!
Even the veteran piece of shit / YouTuber, Onision.
This is my vegetarian body!
When a victim is involved, especially an impressionable child, I believe any step towards intent leads to opportunity and could be damning for the victim who doesn't know any better. I imagine groomers, more than likely, want to be caught in the act about as much as victims want to admit that they were groomed, especially when you still may look up to or be under the influence of that individual. That's not to call Ava specifically a groomer, as the evidence is still being debated, everything is alleged in Minecraft, and I don't want to piss anybody off more than I already will. It's the same reason we hear about men refusing to come forward when they've been SA'd. It's also why we have an age of consent law that Sneeko doesn't believe in strictly for infamy clout. Listen, if for some reason you still can't wrap your malformed fucking head around why a child of any age should be off the table, Sneeko, just consider if you think someone extremely mentally deficient should be capable of consenting. And if you think that's not fair to the mentally deficient, or a harsh take on anyone under the age of 18, just talk to one of them. You'll see what I mean. But don't really. And while we're on the subject of the mentally deficient, I'd like to take a moment to talk about myself and the future of my channel. We've surpassed 1,000 subs and on our way to 1,500, so if you enjoy what I'm saying, or just the pretty pictures in the background, consider subscribing. Make sure that you watch till the end, and don't forget to like and share the video. Now, I've addressed the former tweet because of the harsh criticism surrounding Charlie. I know he's a big boy, and he's perfectly capable of defending himself, but making this a pronoun game is inherently a weak-ass argument. Making this about how long it took Charlie to cover the topic is equally as pathetic. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. This is not a transgender topic. It never should have been. Because as we are all aware, monsters exist in all different forms. Referring to Ava by her name, or they/them, is what I like to consider a safe space. It removes identity in favor of accidentally misgendering someone. It's why I'm glad I wasn't raised with Southern manners, such as addressing people as sir or ma'am. It removes the possibility of damaging or destroying someone's self-image in favor of the possibility of making them feel excluded from the pronoun game.
You said sir! Take it outside! If you want to call me sir again, I will show you sir! I apologize now.
But I want to talk more about this later in the video. Accusing Charlie of hiding or playing favorites, not unlike Sneeko has done to several influencers recently, is just bait. He knows the point's stupid, you know the point is stupid, but it's topic worthy, and it gets people discussing him. Not unlike what I'm doing right now, which is why I'm going to make this the shortest segment of the video. Sneeko, you're a fucking idiot. The fact that you have a following of Elliot Rodger wannabes is indicative of why every viral thing you make is always attached with an air of desperation. Now, I want to move on to some of the most recent allegations before making my final point that may or may not get me canceled as well. That being Mooskina, or Jess, who alleges they were taken advantage of by Ava before and during their time working together. Now, as this is a very long thread with several screenshots and information to take in, and I could possibly give you a misleading bias based on how I personally feel about it, I'm not going to read the entire thread. In fact, I actively encourage you to read it for yourself and come back to my video for my analysis, or wait and hear what I have to say and make your own informed opinion afterwards. And as much as I would love to shit on Ava like I'm filming an explicit video in the Netherlands, I don't see any of this as an abuse of power, nor SA, which is what she and others are alluding to. This is the story of someone who found an opportunity to work with a content creator they enjoyed and a blossoming relationship with someone they looked up to. Unfortunately, Ava was not as reciprocal of those feelings or acts and created a one-sided relationship where Ava got everything she wanted and Jess got very little. Most of this thread follows a pattern of Ava being an incredibly selfish asshole, receiving and never giving, which is meant to be foreshadowing of the power imbalance leading up to the actual alleged SA. Basically, Jess met Ava through Twitter DMs, and after getting to know Jess, Ava flew Jess down to Ava's home state, while Jess was under the assumption that she may participate in a Mr. Beast video. All the while, the two were hooking up, usually with Jess doing all of the work and Ava not really reciprocating. Typically described with unnecessary details that paint an oral visual that none of you really want. After a progression of their relationship, Ava offering Jess a job as her assistant and then moving in together, it seemed as though the relationship was still very one-sided, with Jess putting in all the effort for incredibly little to no return. And after so long of this, Jess decides to cut off the sexually explicit activity until the night of the assault. Now, at this point, everything Jess shares, even without proof, I could consider as pretty damning. The way it's described feels very forceful and leaves a disgusting taste in your mouth. No pun intended. Unfortunately, that is completely undone by the following screenshots where Jess has a deep conversation with Ava, expressing that she felt pressured and uncomfortable with the sexual activity. She never explicitly says that she wants it to stop, but that she always feels the need to say yes. Following this, Ava compares a recent sexual encounter with someone that wanted to use her body when she didn't feel comfortable, but she let this individual do it anyways. She continued by stating that, "I should have asked you to stop, but it just kind of happened, so I let it," implying that both parties were mutually accountable, which it's very possible that Ava is purposefully misconstruing the situation, but Jess never defends or implies that it went any other way. Even after Ava says, "I don't want to do anything sexual with each other," Jess counters with, "In terms of being sexual with my friends/colleagues, I'm always down for. But the way our relationship has developed between each other sexually is incredibly one-sided, and it just makes me feel used and uncomfortable." So apart from the doubling down on the statement that their relationship, at least sexually, feels one-sided, which can happen in any relationship, some people are just selfish lovers, she never challenges that the night in question or any other night wasn't in any way mutual. Now, I would be a bit of an asshole not to mention that these messages, as she stated, were meant to stop the alleged SA without risking her job, which, if you're fully aware of what's taken place and haven't repressed it, and even attempt to address it, why would you want to keep working directly for this fucking goober? But it is completely possible that she was attempting to lighten everything else that she was saying by claiming she didn't mind anything that took place. Although, if that be the case, why would she follow up with, "I don't mind having sex with friends/colleagues," after Ava said that she didn't want to and she didn't have to? This is essentially the bulk of the misconduct, apart from people having also speculated that because the relationship ended, Ava then fired her, which, whether Jess attempted to or not, revealed as bullshit when Jess later states that they were in the process of severing their work relationship, and Ava continuing to make sure Jess gets paid until officially leaving the company, maintaining a friendship outside of the company, and is given a severance package as well until Ava catches wind that Jess planned on reporting her for SA, in which Ava blocked her. Do not get me wrong. I do not think that Ava is a good person, in the right, or deserves to be defended. But a recent video that crossed my path makes a point that I need to address, and that is, believe all victims. Now, you may come to a completely different conclusion, and I'd love to hear about it in the comments. I don't mind being educated on something I may not understand or fully comprehend, and I don't claim to be all wise and all knowing. I'm just as fucked as the rest of you. I actually hate to criticize Bridget Empire because after watching their video on the subject, I agreed with a lot of their points. Now, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about when it comes down to the alt-right drama channels painting a poor narrative around the transgender community as a whole, but here's where I want to discuss the bulk of that topic I mentioned earlier. The transgender community has nothing to do with this situation. This is one individual whose actions were in detriment to the people around them and caused their own downfall. One's actions should not speak for any particular community. Radicals and monsters exist everywhere, but most importantly, they exist online. And because of their behavior, they're capable of building an audience out of ignorance or hate, and because of this, their actions have been able to overshadow the sane and rational individuals who fall into the same community. Painting that community as bad, toxic, weak, hateful, fuck, you get the point. Now, I've watched a lot of videos and dug into a lot of research surrounding this topic as it unfolds, so much so that I wouldn't be surprised if the narrative is updated or changed by the time this video releases. But I have yet to notice any drama channel that paints the picture that this is a particularly transgender problem or that it has anything to do with their community. That would be unfair and revolting to say the least, but I also can't comb through every video on the topic either, so I won't accept or deny that this has been taking place, but I do believe it's more than likely happened. In fact, as I stated before, I agree with a lot of the things Bridget has to say on the matter, even going as far to say that I like their content, and I find them very funny and charming. Right up until we discuss Jess's allegations and the believe all victims sentiment. Reading through everything, I can say that without a doubt, the relationship that Jess and Ava shared was a poor one for sure, with Ava being incredibly selfish and shitty towards Jess's feelings, and Jess always giving in, being incredibly understanding of a situation she felt uncomfortable and used, and even when voicing her concerns, very quickly backpedaling, even when it seems the two are on the same page. It was incredibly unhealthy and shitty, and Ava can once again go fuck herself, but otherwise both parties are at fault, and no, it wasn't SA. But I challenge you to convince me otherwise, or even for Bridget to convince me otherwise. But until then, believe all victims feels like a pretty bad idea. People are capable of lying, they're capable of stretching the truth. We've already seen this from Lava, Ava's alleged victim. And now, maybe this is just how Jess views SA, but everything in her screenshots completely contradicts the picture she is trying to paint, specifically due to her own actions within the screenshots. As stated before, I'm, for lack of a better word, stupid. I make mistakes, I misunderstand, I misinterpret, but I'm also willing to learn. That doesn't mean I won't challenge you on your points or question your reasoning, but I'm willing to hear you out and hopefully learn something new. As for Ava, she's a bad person who is rightfully getting what she deserves. It's not for me to say if she deserves more, but she certainly doesn't deserve any less. I also don't believe that this will cancel her, as most people, especially with a large following, she's going to continue to survive, and not mine nor anyone's words will change that fact. Maybe the narrative slightly, but there's always going to be detractors. Hey, thank you so much if you stuck around this long. A big shout out to my patrons Jessica and Joe, my fantastic editor, and my channel artist. Their links are going to be in the description. Hopefully I'm not canceled and this isn't my last video, but if you did enjoy, consider subscribing. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and share the video to help spread my completely original message that you haven't heard 1,000 times already. That'll about wrap it up, but until next time, be well.